Hello, you beautiful nerds. Today we're going to talk about Zekvir 2 because he's going away. The Season 1 Delve Journey, whatever, the final boss, the Mage Tower-like challenge is going away. Or at least the rewards for doing so before the next season launches are going away this month and probably in the next 20-ish days or so. We believe that 11.1 is probably going to come out around February 25th. That's going to be the start of Season 2. That means that it's going to be the end of Season 1 and the rewards that you can get from Zekvir, including the Void Dirigible, some back pieces, and of course the achievements. So today I wanted to talk about how you can defeat Zekvir 2 if it's something that you've been putting off for a while. Now, I've spent some time on YouTube and I've seen that for the most part, a lot of the guides around Zekvir are done months ago when Zekvir was first there and there was no Cersei Circlet. We just didn't know as much as we do now about how the fight works and all this other stuff. But more importantly, it's also very specific about like certain specs and all of that jazz. So today, I want to just jump into it. So before we get started with the fight itself, there's some prep work that you can do to make this a lot easier for yourself. So first of all, we have Cersei Circlet, which is the ring that you can get from the Siren Isle. It should be maxed out, which is actually super quick to do now. If you haven't done it, you can just spam the quest. You can defeat rares for a chance at getting the raw singing citrine, which allows you to upgrade the ring. You can buy it on a main and send the citrines over. You can just unlock it very quickly. In less than an hour, you can get your ring maxed out with your bis citrines. I'd also recommend choosing whatever citrines do the best single target damage for your spec. So what I've been doing is looking at the class guides and whatnot and what folks recommend for single target fights, because that really is what Zekvir comes down to, is single target fights. You're never really going to be able to cleave, and if you do, you're just not going to be able to. So I would recommend anything that is going to improve your single target as much as possible. I'd also recommend any burst trinkets you may have, but that's just extra prep. You don't really need that. But if you have anything like, if you can get a LFR version of Mad Queen's Mandate, the trinket from Ansarek, if you're able to get one of those, that is probably going to be more useful than a really good stat stick trinket, to be honest with you, because you're going to be able to burst down the thing that needs to get bursted down, which we'll get into. Second, you'll want to head to these coordinates in Hallowfall and heal one of the NPCs that's in the bed. This is going to give you a buff that heals you for 5% of your health every 10 seconds. It's not a lot, but it can help, and it persists through death. So you get it for 3 hours, which should be more than enough time to defeat Zekvir 2. It's not going to be the most, but hey, any healing is going to help. Third, and this is going to be the most impactful tip that I have for you, speed is king in this fight. It'll be a worthwhile investment to get any speed enchants for any slots you can. This one tip seriously makes the fight so much more manageable and decreases the chaos feelings that you'll be having on those early attempts when you're trying to get out of Zekvir's moves, but also DPS the cocoon and all of this other stuff, the chaos that happens. If your character is fast, you will be fast. It is so much better, I promise. Invest in those speed enchants. It's going to work wonders for you. Fourth, it goes without saying, but the higher level your Brann is, the better. It's not required to get him to 60, but I would suggest getting at least the Amorphous Relic to max. That's a utility curio, and the Porcelain Arrowhead is a great combat curio for this fight, but you should probably use what you feel best with. I've heard folks have had success with the Idol of the Earth Mother, the Idol of Final Will, and even the Unbreakable Iron Idol. Personally, I default to the Porcelain Arrowhead and the Amorphous Relics. The Amorphous Relic is an absolute must for this fight. It has two different variations that it can choose when you first start the fight, and both of them are fantastic. One of them is going to increase your speed and haste. One of them is going to increase your health and damage done. So you can't go wrong with either one of those. And finally, Brann should be healing. His DPS isn't reliable and you'll need those potions. The trick to those potions is not to run over all three of them at once. You want to grab one and wait for the hot to almost fall off before picking up another, and so on. This allows you to have healing more consistently. I think a lot of folks don't realize that when you pick up a potion, it's actually putting a heal over time effect on you as well. So if you just run over all three, you're going to deplete that heal over time faster. So if you get one potion, wait for it to almost expire, then grab another. You're extending the duration of the heal over time on yourself, and of course increasing how much it's healing you for. That is going to allow you to keep up with the melees that Zekvir is doing, which are substantial. They do so much damage. The one caveat that I do have to this is I haven't done Zekvir 2 many times on a healer. I'm not a healer, but I have been attempting it on a resto shaman, and I do believe that running Brann as a DPS is the way to go for a healer. At least that's what it feels like. And things obviously change in that regard. So if you are a healer spec, you might have a better time on a different character, but I would recommend the Amorphous Relic still, and probably the Idol of the Earth Mother. I think that's going to do your best bet. And then try to have Brann just have as much aggro as possible, which is very difficult to do with the changes that they made to Brann very early on in the season. And finally, one more little trick that's going to be very good before we ever attempt the fight. You can actually force Brann to put down a campfire by switching specs if you are a class that has mana. If not, doing anything to lower your health will also work. Unfortunately, the fires in the delves are just for shows, so you can't actually stand in one of those to lower your health. The reason why you want his campfire is because if you eat at it, you'll get a massive 5% primary stat buff, which is way better than any other food and cheaper too. So definitely recommend anything you can do to get him to spawn his campfire. Eat at that. 5% primary is huge. Definitely recommend doing that. It's kind of annoying because you'll have to do it after every attempt, but 5% primary is huge. Now let's get to Zekvir himself. Zekvir tier 2. That's the only one that really matters here. This can only be unlocked once you've completed a tier 10 delve with lives remaining. Then you must head to his delve entrance, which isn't on the map. It doesn't show up like the other delves. It's in Ajkahet. It's the coordinates 3576. Once you're actually in the City of Threads, which is like the little subzone, it's actually 1133 for coordinates. So sometimes that can be a little confusing. People get lost, but it's in the City of Threads. Make sure you're set up, ready to go, and get comfortable. You could be here for a few hundred attempts, so you get comfortable. Now, let's look at each mechanic that Big Lobster Boy here does and how best to deal with them. First is his melees. You're just going to get hit, and that's why we have those handy Brann potions. If you're a pet class, you'll probably need to turn your pet to passive and make sure you turn off its taunt. If it ever gets threat, it's going to die immediately. At least that's true for the hunters among us. Warlocks seem to have it significantly easier, and unsure why when it comes to pet management. Next, we have Claw Smash. This is an unpredictable and absolutely attempt-ending hit if you get hit. The trick is to always be near him, as his conal will do what conals do best and get wider the further out it is. It's much easier to dodge this if you are near him, and so much of this fight actually comes down to this move, which we'll get into that in a second and how best to deal with this. But Claw Smash will absolutely wreck you if you are in it when it goes off. And there are some traps that this game will do, this fight will do, to make sure that you are in it when you don't want to be. Next, we have his Angler's Web. It's a smaller conal that he'll shoot out in front of him that doesn't have anywhere near the reach, but it's always going to target you. His Claw Smash can go on Brann, it can go on a pet, it can go on you, but his Angler's Web is always going to choose you. Get out of this so you don't get pulled into him and then one shot. That's it. It's going to send out like a little projectile web that comes out. You just don't get hit by that and you won't get sucked into his melee that he follows up with there. That's it. That one's very easy. Next is Enfeebling Spittle. This is a cast that ends with a magic dot on you that does a tremendous amount of damage, and while it is interruptible, you do not want to do that. You do not want to interrupt this. Almost every class has some way of clearing this dot from themselves without relying on that interrupt, and I'll include a list in the description. Basically, anything that removes a snare or movement debuff will get rid of it. Easy. So for shamans, you can go with the talent Thunderous Paws. Anytime you Ghost Wolf, it will clear the debuff. That does have an internal 20-second cooldown that you can't actually see or track, so keep that in mind. But there are a bunch of different things. Blessing of Freedom from Paladins is going to work. If you have Posthaste for hunters, Disengage will get that dot off of you. It's very easy. And then, of course, if you have a way of removing a magic effect on yourself, that will work as well. Now, for the wildly important, absolutely must be interrupted cast, Zekvir's Regenerating Carapace. This is a massive heal that, if not kicked, if not interrupted, means a much longer fight in an already very long one. This is why we kept our interrupt. This has to be kicked. If it goes off, yes, you can still win the fight, but it's going to be even longer. This happened to me on my monk, and I ended up going, I think it was like a almost 8-minute fight. So it's too long. It's almost not worth continuing if that heal does get off. Next, we have his AoE circle heal, which he'll just get out of, or else he'll be feared, probably dead. It's just a big circle AoE around him. Just get out of it. That one is pretty self-explanatory. And finally, for phase 1, we have the ad. This is what the whole fight centers around. The web cocoon webbed terror that he will summon. This is going to spawn a cocoon randomly in the arena that should be blown up as soon as possible. If not, it's going to spawn an ad that casts Web Bolt, which stuns and does damage and probably means you lost. If you have no way of getting out of that stun, you're going to be taking Zekvir melees. You're going to have the melee from the web terror itself. It's not going to be good. It is worth mentioning that if the cocoon does spawn an ad, you can line of sight the web bolt if you're able to get into one of the little alcoves if the egg is like against a wall and you're able to get in like the hallway that you enter the fight in. You can actually line of sight in case, but don't use your kick for that. You can't afford that kick. So get the cocoon down as fast as possible. The ad will spawn based on how much health the cocoon has, and it's really best to just make sure it never actually spawns. But here's the kicker about this part, no pun intended. Zekvir will usually either cast his circle AoE fear around himself, his angler's web, or worst case scenario, his big claw smash. So it's best to try to bait the attack in such a way where you'll be able to attack the cocoon without getting smashed yourself, all the while making sure you are ready to interrupt that heal in case he does that as well. So the way that I've found is most successful is you want to kind of bring Zekvir over to the egg as much as you can, as much as he'll allow. So this way you're just able to get out of it a little bit easier. He's still in range in case you need to kick him and you're a melee class, all of those reasons. And you want to kind of hesitate before you go to the cocoon, because usually he'll summon the cocoon and he's going to do an attack almost immediately after. So give him a second to just see what he's about to do, and then you can proceed with what you wanted to do. As long as you're positioning in such a way where if he does do claw smash, you can safely still run to the cocoon without getting hit by it. And that's it. Oh, wait, nope, that's right. There's a phase 2. At 60% health, Zekvir will transition into an arguably easier phase than the first 40%. His heal becomes blood-infused carapace and will heal for even more. If this heal goes off at 60%, you're basically you're doing the whole fight in phase 2 again at like 90% health. It's crazy. His circle AoE fear will have 4 orbs that will shoot out in cardinal directions from him, so north, south, east, west, that have to be dodged. They act just like what would happen if you were caught in the circle, but the orb also does a tremendous amount of damage, so don't get hit by any of those orbs. They are actually pretty easy to dodge once you know where they're going to be. And he'll do a new attack called Endless Spines, where brown swirlies will appear all over the arena with these rocks falling from the sky, and you just have to dodge those. Oh, and now his Angler's Web will also create these little purple portals around him that will send the projectile through it, and if it hits you, it will pull you into one of those portals and then into him. So don't be in between any portals whatsoever, and you'll be fine. Oh, and all of this is while he's still casting his Spittle and summoning the Webbed Terror ad. The thing is, though, the reason why it's easier is because he's meleeing way less because he's had so many casted abilities. And he actually does the Web Terror ad less frequently than he did in phase 1. This fight is a marathon, not a sprint. The damage done to Zekvir is irrelevant. He'll die eventually as long as you're doing the mechanics correctly and saving your big burst for the cocoons every time they come up. It's so important that those cocoons die. That is the bread and butter of this fight. If for some reason you just can't get that cocoon down, I recommend spending some time getting comfortable with your keybinds, your rotation, planning your cooldowns accordingly, or just go get more gear. Whichever one sounds like something you'd like to do. This is a game after all, and sometimes the rewards aren't worth the journey. But for me, I love this fight. I think it's a great fight. Just make sure you get it done before it goes away. If there's any other questions that you have about Zekvir, I've tried to include as much as I could, but there's a lot. Different specs deal with this in different ways, and maybe there's tips and tricks that I don't even know about this fight. I've done it about 4 times, I think, on what characters I have, and I recommend it. It's a really fun fight. It can be very aggravating when some of the RNG says a claw smash is in your face, but overall, it's a great fight. Let me know, again, if there's anything that I missed that you would like to include in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and never give up, never surrender to Zekvir. Bye, everyone.
I'll give you a hand with this one.